So welcome back. That was quite interesting to hear Lars Furgaard talking about what he learned from the listening tour that he had around in the organization. And listening is actually one of the key tools, but there are more tools. And I'll present some of them to you now in a talk called The Inclusive Organization, The Hidden Bias of Good People. Because the thing is, we all are prone to bias. And we cannot really do that much about it. Well, we can learn about the psychological mechanisms behind bias, and we can do some critical thinking. But the best thing is actually to invite diversity into your presence, into your team. And that way, then the people that are different than you, they'll challenge your bias, and you can challenge theirs. And that will help you make better decisions, but it will also help you as an organization to avoid scandals. And we have seen a lot of examples on this. One of the later ones was from Volkswagen here. It was last summer. They launched this really, really nice commercial. Oh, they thought it was nice themselves. It was for the Golf. They were so proud. But then they got a lot of critique online, and they were very surprised. What happened was, at some point in this commercial, this picture was shown. So you see a large white hand, and it's kind of flicking a black person inside a store. This little store is called the Little Colony. And as if that wasn't enough, then above these white fingers, you can actually spell the German version of the N-word. This got a lot of people upset. And Volkswagen, they were like, what happened? They were fast to apologize, but then they needed to do an investigation. So they launched an investigation, and they found there was actually no racist intent behind this. What had happened was there was a lack of diversity in the marketing team, and that had created some blind spots, so they didn't even notice how this ad could be racist. And I will take this a step further. I'll say it's not even just lack of diversity. It's actually lack of an inclusive mindset. Because if you have diversity, it's nothing. It's nothing without inclusion. So what I want to do now is to take you on a journey towards an inclusive mindset in your organization. And let's start that journey around Second World War. If we go into the top of an organization here, it will look kind of like this. This is a boardroom, I think. But if we go to the bottom in the same organization, it might have looked kind of like this. Or kind of like this. Because this was the point in time where women, they joined the workforce. What I want you to notice here is that you have three really homogeneous groups of people. You can say there's kind of a cultural fit within each group. And that's nice. We like this. We like being around people who look like ourselves, who act like us, who have the same opinions. It's much, much easier to agree. It's much easier to... oh, there it is, sorry. It's much easier to make decisions. And it's much more effective to think when you think alike. There's just one problem. There's some pitfalls in this, and I work with this when I go into organizations. Sometimes I have a little fun with their personality types, because that's also diversity. So I put people inside a group who have totally the same kind of personality type. And then I put other people together who have different personality types, and I give them the same assignment to solve. The thing that's happening over here in a homogeneous group is that there are high fives. They have fun. It's really a good mood here, and they are proud of the solution. They make it quick. They're quick to hand it in to me. Over here in the diverse group, you have a bit more friction. It's hard to agree on everything. You have more perspectives. It takes a little bit longer to have a solution. And when they hand it in to me, they don't feel as confident. But the thing is, every time I see that the solution over here in the diverse group is better, simply because they've been around the problem. They've had more angles in there. So it's very, very important to invite diversity in. The thing is, none of us like the friction. And sometimes we actually turn away from it. What I need you to learn today to get an inclusive mindset is to get to a point where you love the friction. Because the friction will help you avoid the blind spots, and it will help you avoid bias in decision making. So what is it about these biases? Well, I cannot go deeply into the psychological mechanisms behind them today, so I'll just make two analogies. You can think about bias as some cultural glasses you have on every day. And to challenge your bias, you need to take them all off. But none of us actually do unless we're challenged to take them off. Another analogy would be to compare biases to optical illusions. So what I want you to do now is to look at this chessboard. Look at the square A in the top and the square B in the middle. The square A looks darker than the square B. But actually, they're not. So what I did right here, just by combining the two squares, is I forced you to take the glasses off. I forced you to look at this in a new way. And you can actually see that they're the same color. And these are not two different pictures. So if you continue looking at the left-hand side, and I do this, then you can almost feel it shifting in your brain. And suddenly you can see that they're totally the same color. The thing that's happening here is that our brain is kind of compensating for the shadow that the cylinder is casting on the checkerboard. You can almost say that our cultural knowledge of a chessboard, it's stronger than our ability for our eyes to see the color. And that is a problem, and that's a problem we find in bias too, because if I move onward and next time I see this picture, the square A still looks darker than the square B. And that's the same thing with bias. So you can learn a lot about the psychological mechanisms behind bias, and you should, because it will help your critical thinking. But Monday morning, when your mailbox is full and everyone is pulling in your sleeve and you're stressed out, then we all fall back into our habits and we are biased again. So you need to invite diversity in to challenge these biased assumptions. The thing is, each and every day, each one of us, we end up in a situation where we do not agree with someone. And it could look kind of like this. You might be the person who sees a 9. And what I want you to do is walk around the problem and try to look at it from the other perspective, from the perspective where you see a 6. You might never get to really love or like the person who sees the 6 or argues the 6, but in trying to understand this person, then you'll create a more inclusive mindset. It will be much more easy for you to be inclusive in your organization. And furthermore, the added bonus is that it will help you in critical thinking and it will help you make better decisions. And we can actually test how much you do this every day if you flex this inclusive muscle a lot or not so much. So what I want you to do now is to take your pointy finger and draw a capital letter E in your forehead. Just press good and hard so you can remember how you drew it. And I want you to do it now. The thing is, you can do this in two ways. You can do it so you can see the E, and you can do it so other people can see the E. And what we see in research is that the people who draw these E's so other people can see it, well, they also score higher on empathy tests. They're usually better at taking the other perspective, and they're usually quite good inclusive leaders. The funny thing is that research also shows that the higher you get into an organization, the more power you get, the more inclined you are to draw the E in a way so you see it yourself. And this is actually not surprising. It's not surprising because when you get power or when you get promoted, it's like getting a pat on the back, people saying to you, well, we like your point of view. We want your perspective. You're good at decision making. We want your view of the world. And each time people say this to you, you are less inclined to see other people's perspective because you know your perspective is good. So what I want in all organizations is for the top level to invite diversity in because they really need to get their biases challenged. But the same thing about majorities, because there's a lot of power in being the majority. So every time you walk into a room and you are the majority, well, then you have a responsibility. The thing is, all people in privileged position, they are the change makers. They are the people able to make the change. And they are also, therefore, the responsible ones. But it doesn't mean that everyone shouldn't train this, taking the other perspectives. We all need to train it. And we can do it in different ways. We can do it by mentalization games. There are a lot of this, if you look it up. One of the easiest things is every day to challenge yourself by asking a person you know to tell you 3 stories about themselves. 2 of them can be true, the last one isn't, and you have to guess which one is not true. This will train your mental fitness. It is like flexing this fitness inclusive muscle. And if each one of you train this inclusive mindset every day, well, then you end up having the inclusive organization. I was very happy to hear Lars Fruergaard talk about listening because it's a key thing. But actually, listening is not enough. You have to give voice. And by giving voice, I mean creating psychological safety. Because if people, they need to feel secure enough in their environment to actually tell you the truth, to come to you when they think something is wrong. And each and every one of you in an organization, you can help this by having this inclusive mindset. And you get it by balancing 2 things. And you can see it in this model that I'll show you now. You have to balance degrees of uniqueness in your organization with degrees of belongingness. If you only have degrees of uniqueness, then you get a culture of differentiation. So everyone, they do their own thing and they don't even collaborate. If you have only focus on belongingness, then you get a culture of assimilation where everyone is alike, but no one really feels they can be themselves. So you have to all the time balance these 2 things. So we kind of need a change of view from once upon a time where we recruited for cultural fitness. Nowadays, we have to focus on being cultural fit. Oh, sorry. We recruited for cultural fit. Now we need to recruit for cultural fitness. The cultural fitness will give us the inclusive mindset. It's much more flexible. It's a mindset where you take other people's perspective and you combine them in a collective intelligence, and that will give you the better decisions. So what I want you to remember is that you are the DNA within an inclusive organization. And to be that, you need to include different perspectives to block bias, and you also need to always stay curious when you encounter the friction. And with those words, I'll say thank you for your attention, and then I'll leave you to go into breakout rooms now. And here I would like hopefully you will reflect on my talk, and you will identify where you meet friction in your work life. And I would like you to discuss what a more inclusive mindset would be in these situations. Because the thing is, I might be the expert on inclusion, but you guys, you're the expert on Novo Nordisk, so you can figure out how the inclusive mindset is in your organizations. So the breakouts, it's actually explained here how to go into these breakout rooms. There are 4 steps, and I hope you find your way easily into these rooms.